Hey guys, Flash right here, welcoming you to a Europa Universalis 3 video. Now this isn't a part of the main gameplay, this is just a tutorial video because explaining this game takes a heck of a lot of time and I don't want to bore you to death during the gameplay. So, we're going to talk through the game here. Now after hearing a couple of suggestions, we will be playing as England. Now, I have played as England before, and if I check my save games, so of course we have Great Britain formed. Actually, France got completely destroyed. Spain formed. I basically control the only part of Canada that you can colonize on the eastern side, and a bit of America. I got beaten to the south, well, south of the North America by Portugal, while I captured the western side of it. Pretty much that area got screwed over. I got Jamaica, so we will be getting Usain Bolt. We got a holding on South America. Got the South African border. I wanted to get that, but of course that didn't happen. We got Madagascar, just like the movies. Got a bit of an Indian holding, even though this is British Asia. We've got Australia. Got beaten to New Zealand, unfortunately. But they're not really good provinces, so... And I had Taiwan. Anyway, we're gonna start the game off. As England. 14th of October 1399. Like I said, this is going to be the tutorial video, so I'm going to be showing how everything works. So, for my normal options, everything's going to be on normal. Sea provinces is going to be 25 years. Land province 25 years. Spies are on normal. Don't want them on free. Makes it too easy. And lucky nations I'm going to turn off. That way, countries like France or Castile or even Portugal could fall very easily. That way we don't have to all gang up on them at once. And anyway, let's get into the game. Ooh, we'll get into that in a minute. Definitely want to be starting this. Anyway, so here's the map. Yeah, the map. You got your terrain map mode. Well, we'll be going into map modes in a bit. We're going to be starting off in the top left corner with this interface. You got furthest one on the left, which is your manpower. This is how much army you can produce. So right now we have a maximum manpower of 22,316. We have a current manpower of 19,000, which means we can build 19 regiments right off the bat. Manpower slowly regenerates over time, so you kind of want to keep an eye on it during war, because that's what you use to reinforce your armies when they're not in battle. We'll be going over mainly what this does later on in the game anyway. Here's your stability marker. Now there are there's 7 different sets of stability. You got the -3, -2, -1, 0, +1, +2, +3. The higher your stability, the better rewards you get for having it. So it's good. It's always good to keep stability, but it might not be a good thing to always have it there, because we get certain events in the game which chooses between stability or a certain debuff. So always a good idea to keep your stability as high as possible. Here's our money, or your ducat, or your ducats, or your ducats, depending on how you pronounce it. This is basically your in-game currency, so you want to keep that always above 0. You always want to make some money by the end of the year. So right now we're making enough money to sustain ourselves. Here's our prestige. Our prestige gives us a wide number of benefits, so it goes up to a cap of +100, if I'm not mistaken. So it's always a good idea to have that there ready for it. So right now we're at +34. It will decay over time, so you always want to look to keep that in the positives at minimum. And that gives us all different kinds of benefits. Here's your infamy rating. Now, when you take over countries, you get infamy. And infamy basically makes it so that everybody doesn't like you a bit. We have an infamy limit of 34. If we go over that limit, everybody hates us. We basically become like the England of today. Everybody hates us, so the fact, then it's early in time as well, so we can go to war, literally, with a reason. So they could just come in and just batter us to death. So, you might want to keep an eye on that. Infamy will reduce over time as well. So, and there's some elements to change that as well. Here's legitimacy. Now, legitimacy doesn't really come into too much of an effect, but it gives you some benefits, so you might look to keep this high. The only time it goes down is if you got war exhaustion during wars, when they go on for too long, or when the current heir is got a weak claim. So, not really. The legitimacy won't really change much during the game, but should it get too low, that's when revolts start happening for no apparent reason. That's the main things that you need to look about. Now we're moving on to select people that we need to look at. Here we got merchants. Pretty self-explanatory. You can send them out to centers of trade. Boom, they get you money, depending on their compete chance. And we get 3 a year, so that's quite nice. Here we have colonists. Whenever a territory is unoccupied, for example, this one over here, we can take that over by sending a colonist there. We also got to keep an eye on natives as well, which can destroy the colony and make it available to take over again. So you got to be careful now. Is the time taken, along with your chance to succeed, and how much would it be? So keep an eye on that one. Diplomats, self-explanatory. You can send them to any country that you want and do what you want with it. You might and also they are useful to recruit generals and all that, which we'll be getting into in a bit. Here's your missionaries. Missionaries are most likely useful if a country is a different religion to your state religion. So right now, England is is always Catholic. That may change over time when things like Protestantism, Unorthodox, and Reformed come in. But that'll be at least for quite a while, yeah. Here we have spies. Spies, yeah, they're not really much used in the game, but they can be really useful for slowing down country development. For example, if I had one, I could send one to France right now. Try and get a revolt going. This costs a lot of money, which is why you should always have a lot in the bank for that. So always want to be wary of that. And here we have magistrates, probably the most important of the 6. The magistrates gives you a lot of things. It makes you be able to build buildings. You can make cultural tradition out of them, and you can pretty much build any building with them. So when we get into higher tech levels, that's when we're going to need them a lot. Here we have the date, and we can unpause the game if we want, and the speed up time, because it advances in days, not weeks or years or whatever. It goes up in days, so that's why this game takes a while to complete, because you can change it to whatever speed you want. Here is our crest, which gives us a lot of things to do here, so we'll be going over this. Here is our overview. We can see we have a feudal monarchy, which gives us more magistrates a year. Our policy changes every 11 years, which we'll be getting to that in a short while. We get a better manpower modifier and a better land force limits, which means we can hold more troops in the territory. We are an English culture. We're only accepting English right now. No, we're accepting American and Scottish, but we don't really have them. But we also tolerate Gascon, Norman, and Cosmotine. Yeah. And our king is Henry IV of Lancaster. That is our prestige rating, and we've currently got the highest prestige in the game, which is good. We have an honourable reputation. This changes whenever you have infamy. If it goes down to 0, you have this. If you have it too high, you have tarnished reputation. Here's our current list of things that we're involved with. So we're currently allied with Portugal. We have a royal marriage with Portugal. We have a conquest casus belli on Connaught, Leinster, Munster and Tyrone because of our mission, but we'll get into that in a minute. We have a reconquest casus belli on Armagnac, Burgundy and France. We're a member of the Hanseatic Trading League, which is over here. There we go. Right there. This is probably the best trade league you can get in the game, so for early on in the game. So you want to send merchants to there quite early on. We view France, Burgundy, Castile, and Bohemia as natural rivals. Basically, they're quite powerful to us, and we want to be careful of their movements. We feel threatened by France, Burgundy, the Golden Horde, and the Mamelukes. The Golden Horde and the Mamelukes are over here. Well, Golden Horde's right here. It's quite a big province at the start of the game, and here's the Mamelukes is also quite a big empire. Generally with a big army, so if they go to war pretty early, if they could take over a lot of this before they can react to it. But anyway, and we had the mission Conquer Ireland. We'll go into missions in a minute. Here we have our relationships with other countries. As we can see, we've got some good relationships with a lot of people. We want to get alliances with certain countries, so we can do what I said we were going to do in the first episode, which is to take over France. Yeah, that's going to take a bit. We're going to need to get into an alliance with either Castile or Aragon to do that. And also, we may need to go after Brittany after our first war. So, want to be on top of our toes with that. Here we have the Create Vassals button. We can create a vassal for certain of our province. Now, certain provinces that we already own also could be a separatist territory. We got Wales, which we took over recently. If you have a mod which takes back 40 years down the line, Wales will not be occupied yet by England. So, right now, we could let them become independent, which isn't very recommended, especially this early in the game. We also, Cornwall has a core in Cornwall, of course, and Northumberland does for the same reason. So we can make them independent if we wanted to. So, moving on from that menu, we have our court. Here we have our king, who's not really very decent. He has administration skill of 4, he has a diplomacy skill of 4, and he has a military skill of 3. So, military skill is ineligible. We don't really want to be doing that. We don't want to be getting him in control of any armies. His diplomatic is alright, but it's not that great. And administrative skill could be better. So, not really a great king, to be honest. But his heir, who's currently 13 years old, is a lot better in military style. So, when he takes over, he'll have that skill. How the royal family works in this game, it works like the olden times, where males have priority to the throne. Right now, Henry IV could have a daughter right now, who's a lot older than Henry V. But Henry has priority over the throne because he's a boy. Women in those times were mainly used to get into royal marriages with other countries to form alliances. So, women didn't really have much control over the throne, unless if there were no males around to take control. That's when a queen would ascend to the throne. Here's the great men of the court. So right now we already have a person in the court who has a monthly stability investment of plus 12, which is pretty decent for the start of the game. We have 2 slots to get anybody we want, which none of them are really good right now, so we'll sort that out later. Moving on to economy, this is where all your money is being managed. Right now we can see that most of our income is from tax. Some of it's from production, and we get a little bit of trade income. We're making a decent bit of money, but we're breaking even on terms of investments. Advisor salaries come up to 0.4, and then we got a military maintenance of 4.8. So overall, we're making like -5 ducats every month. But if we check up here, we're making 59 ducats every year, because at the end of the year, we get a bonus. Just like the bankers. We could take a loan if we wanted to. Not really recommended. You don't want to be doing that, because the interest is pretty high, and you have to get a great man in order to lower that. And you only take loans if you're really in dire straits. We have missionary and colonial maintenance, but we don't really want to be doing that quite. Well, we don't really have any reason to have those quite yet. I'll be getting to these later on. Here's the technologies. We are currently spending 3.3 ducats in everything apart from stability, which is 3.4. We can change these whatever we want because of the slider along with the arrows, and this is where we can automatically invest. So we can spend 200 ducats to get 100 invested immediately, which is kind of good if you got a lot of money, but we don't. Now, we can choose whatever technologies we can invest in, and we will be choosing that quite early off the bat because we want to get certain things right off the bat. So right now that grey man's quite useful because our stability is +1. We want to get that to +3. So that will get promoted next year to +2. Okay, that'd be fine. Here's your treasury. You can invest into the treasury to save money each month. Say that if you're making a deficit and you were going to run out of money by the end of the year, you could invest into your treasury and get more. However, though, this causes inflation, which basically rises up every single price of everything you spend in the game. So that's a very bad thing to have a massive watermelon. AIs are pretty dumb in this because towards the end of the game you can see them like having like 50 to 100% inflation, which basically means they're stuffed up building anything that they want. They have to have like 10,000 ducats in order to keep that country going, which is quite massive in terms of how much you're limited to. So always good to have the least amount of inflation as possible. As soon as it gets above 10, that's when you should be starting to get a little bit worried about it. War taxes, I'll get into that later because that's all about war. Trust me on that one. Here we have our unit tax. Right now we can build land medieval infantry and halberd infantry. These all give certain amount of stats, but land medieval infantry is the best one we have right now. Now we can choose between light knights or chevauchés. I tend to more of offensive cavalry rather than defensive, because I think a defensive cavalry is a lot more vulnerable. And since several states give off a lot more offensive rather than defensive, that's the way I'm going to go. We have no cannons as of yet. We won't get them for another 100 years, so I wouldn't bother about that. Here we have our ships. We could build a carrack, which is a massive ship. It costs a lot to get more, so I wouldn't recommend. If you're going to build ships, don't build carracks immediately. Just get them late in the game. Plus, you'll have upgrades to get these anyway, so you'll get better ships. We don't have the option to build a light ship right now because we don't have the tech to do it. I think we get a next level. No, we don't. It's quite late on, actually. But anyway, so we'll be coming back to that later. Right here we got a galley. They're more mainly a fast units. They're not really much. They're not really much combat capable. So they're not really very useful. They're only useful in large numbers. So I recommend building them. Cogs are transport units. So basically, for every cog that we have, we can transport one regiment inside that ship. Cogs are extremely transport units are extremely useful for getting, especially with us, because we need them to get anywhere. So those are quite useful. Our war exhaustion. Now, we have a limit of 17, and when we go to war, eventually we'll get war exhausted. So, as the war continues and we lose more and more men, and people become more and more doubtful of the war, they will start to revolt more when you get high war exhaustion. So you're going to have to be careful of that. If it goes too high, try and end the war. Otherwise you're just going to be inundated with revolts, and then the other country's going to be like, okay, I'm going to kill you now. So, and it reduces over time depending on your ruler and your current state of war. So basically peace. Here we have our maintenance. These are incredibly useful if you don't want to lose money very early on in the game. Now, we currently have a maintenance 2.3 for land and 2.5 for naval. The reason that naval is a bit higher is because we got 41 ships. I'll go into the reason for that in a minute. But we only have 9 land units. Land units tend to cost more, but they're a lot easier to maintain. We have a support limit of 38, which means we can have 38 regiments before we start taking penalties for support limits. Naval, we have 43, but we're a lot closer, but we won't really need to build ships right now. Moving on to our religious and revolt tab, we are Catholic, of course, which gives us a lot of benefits, but it also increases our stability costs in terms of heretics. Our tolerance of heretics are right here, so basically we have -2 for an Orthodox and -2 for a Muslim. And a lot of other religious. Here we have our religious decisions, and most of these are quite useful. Some of these are really useful to reduce things. For example, that's useful. But we need a government to level 15 and centralization versus decentralization less than 0, so it might not want to be useful. Defender of the Faith is alright. It's an okay effect. It gives you a better morale of armies and navies. You don't get as much war exhaustion, and you also get a yearly prestige. You do take a hit in income, but it also costs a lot to become it. So choose it wisely. Our rebel factions is when we have a revolt and they manage to take over a territory. We can see to their demands because we don't have time to go in there and kick their ass, but we also will have other things to do later. Moving on to our government tab, we are a feudal monarchy, like I said before, which gives us a lot of benefits. Here's our government ideas, but we don't have the tech to use them yet, so we'll get those later. The main thing about this tab is the domestic policies. Here's all different sliders that we have, which we can use to change the way the country is being run. And each one of these gives certain benefits and de-benefits to the game. Why did I say de-benefits? That's not even a word. Some harmful things to our nation. There we go. So, usually you want to be different. In the next episode, when I go into the game, I'll state what I'm looking for in domestic policies for the very early bit of the game, and then we'll change to go in later on. Moving on to our leaders tab, we have a discipline of 104% because of our slider of quality versus quantity, which is good. We also have a army tradition of 0 and a navy tradition of 0. We have one general right now who is very good. He has a very good shock, fire, and maneuver rating, which is basically the rules of battle, which I'll go on later. Here we can recruit generals, admirals, and we can also convert ruler to general. These two we can't use yet because we need a national idea for, which we'll go into later. Here we have our culture tab, which is our cultures are our traditions are separated into culture, navy, and army. And in order to get naval and army up, we need to have battles going on for that, or we need to have buffs which reduce the base value or even raise it. So getting those as high as possible is a good thing. The good thing about it is we can recruit better great men. Now, these are costly to your tradition. Some of them cost like 20 cultural tradition, others give cost to naval and army tradition. So you want to have high tradition and everything in order to get the best great man. In order to do that, we got cultural decisions which we cost magistrates. For example, we can't build any buildings right now, so when we get 5 magistrates, we can all put them into commission paintings, which costs 1 magistrate, but gives us 5 cultural tradition off the bat, which is very useful for getting high cultural tradition whenever you don't need them. So we can use those to get things that we need. However, there's quite nice things, but however they cost a bit of money to maintain, and also it also can cost a bit of diplomat. So we can use them a bit later on when we can actually do that. Moving on to our missions and decisions tab. We're finally at the end of the shield. Don't worry, we're almost done. So our current mission is to conquer Ireland. The best thing you can get at the start of the game. Which basically means we have 4 territories right here. We got Ulster, Connacht, Munster, and Leinster. We have a free reason to go to war with them. So right now we have the Conquest War. Basically it means we get a free reason to go to war with them. We can go to war. We can take them over, and we get 25% less infamy. We get 100% more prestige and 100% cost. Okay. So we could go and annex them, and we get that territory for our own, and we get less infamy for doing it, which is quite nice. And by gaining all of Ireland, we get a core on everything. Gaining cores can mean no revolts at all until we get war exhaustion. So I'll go into that a bit later. Here we have our national decisions. These are all really useful, especially if you want to get certain things. For the moment we are aiming to do this, which is to form the British nation. Now we need to have certain things. Now, right now we need a core on Lothian and Aberdeen, which are owned by Scotland. We will be going after that later. And by doing this, we can form Great Britain, and we can have a core on a Great Britain gains core on everything, which means our country changes to Great Britain, not from England. We get a core on everything that we own. So that means we get also a Castles Bell and anything that we don't own on the British Isles. We also gain a colonist. We also gain 1 base tax in Northumberland, but when you check back, it always changes, so it's always a random thing. We also get centralisation plus 2. We also get 5 prestige for doing it, and we also get our country name changed to Great Britain. We have also other things as well, which can help us out. We won't be getting certain things too much later in the game, such as Britannia rules the waves. We need 100 big ships in order to have that, and we also need to have 30 ports. So we need to have expanded a lot in order to get that. So that's it for the shield. Now we're going to move on to our map modes. These won't take as long. So here we have terrain mode, which is looking pretty nice, but you can barely see named countries. Now the thing that we want is political map mode, which means you can basically see where every country is and where its borders are, so you know who is owned by who, which 99% of the time is the map mode I'm going to be using. Here we have our religious map mode, which tells us all the religions that we have. All the yellow bit right here is Catholic. Here we have unorthodox, unorthodox. Here we have Sunni, which is Muslim. We got a bit of Sunni here. We got Catholic here, which is a bit weird, but oh well. We got animist over here, which is also there, and that's it. Not a lot to go for, but we get more. The Catholic faith starts to fall a little bit when it comes later in the game. We may change religion, but I don't think we will, because we take a massive stability hit when we do. So even though we gain a massive chunk of money, but yeah. Anyway, moving on to our Imperial map mode, which is not really useful for playing as England because that's the HRE. HRE is the Holy Roman Empire, so not really very useful, and these are only useful for the German, Netherlands, and all that. Which basically means if you go to war with any one of these states, you're pretty much going to get attacked by anybody from these states. Well, I'll get it out in a minute. The Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, which is currently Bohemia, will intervene on their behalf, which means all their allies just jump in and everything becomes a lot harder. So, you might want to avoid war in the Holy Roman Empire for now. Here we have our trade map mode. If I go down real quick, closer to England, we can see which territory produces what. So, for example, here in London, we are producing grain. 1.9 units of it. It's currently got a price of 2.4 ducats, but we're selling it at 5.5. Good thing. So, in quite a good map mode to know when you're at war with somebody and you don't know which territory to take, which is right next to yours, you can use the trade thing to get the best province for you. Moving on, whoa, camera. Moving on to our diplomatic map mode. Now, England, of course, is in yellow. We have green. We have a couple holdings on the French territory, which I'll go into a bit of detail later. Anything lighter green is ally. So basically Portugal. Anything that we have cores on has a stripy green. So we have cores on Normandy and Co. And we have cores on Paris. And we have a core on Picardy. So we could go to war with France and Burgundy right off the bat. It's not really recommended at this time though to go and attack them like that. Here's the region map mode, which I don't really understand that much. It just gives you a load of regions, really. Not really understanding, I hardly ever use it, don't even bother. Culture map mode. It gives us a lot of cultures, which it tells us which culture is doing what. So here we have English, we got Welsh, Cornwall's Welsh, Ireland is Irish, of course, France is Constantine, Brittany is Breton, Germany, or the HRE, has got a lot of different ones, but that will become German later, which is Germanic. It's a decent map mode, but hardly ever uses it, so what's the point? Sphere of influence is those that we got sphere of influence on. Can we really expand our influence? No, we can't. Expand our influence to Castile? Aww, that sucks. Anything, of course, as our green right now, we can expand our influence at the cost of prestige to anybody. Which basically means if some other country goes like, royal marriage, alliance, war, we can get a free casus belli on their attackers, so which means we can jump in and kill them. Simple. Here we have revolt map mode. Not really the best thing in the world, because it looks like that we just took over Wales. Great. Which basically means they can revolt at any time. 12.9%. But it's okay, we'll just crush whoever comes up. Simple. Here we are at colonial map mode. This is basically where we can colonize, which not really very important right now. We'll go into that a bit later. We have economical map mode. This basically shows the value of each one of our territories. Green is good, red is bad. The reason why Wales is so completely crap is because of the revolt risk is reducing it. Yes, by a whole 50% of the base tax, which is 4. So that's not really very good. As soon as that clears up, they'll be fine. Here we have fort level map mode. No, manpower map mode. Fort power is the next one. Manpower is basically what we can use. Not really much of a helpful map mode. It's just useful to see which one is not really producing as much as it should. But anyway, moving on. we have fort level. Fort level's not really useful right yet. It will be useful in 100 years or so when we start seeing like level 2 forts pop up. Level 3? This early in the game? Okay. Level 3. Okay, I'll deal with that. Right now, in England, London has the best fort, of course, with a level 2 fort. Everything else is level 1. If you have a level 0 fort, that basically means if an enemy army comes into your territory, it's an instant take. Which I think, yeah, these two don't have it. So they need to build them sharpish. Here's our stability map mode. Green means less stability costs. The reason why Wales, once again, is being a dick and having a higher stability cost, even though it's pretty low as it is because it has core. It has a core. We can't remove that, so it's going to be like that for the rest of the game. So that's unfortunate. Here we have technology map mode. Basically all of our techs. And then you can see right off the bat, the Muslim territories have a better tech than we do. That'll change. Trust me. It'll flip by the end of the game. At least with this map mode, you can spy on what tech everybody's got. The smaller your empire, the easier it is to get up tech. So you're gonna see like Holland become the tech leader for quite a bit, and it will change between members of the HRE a lot. So keep an eye on that one. Here we have trade value level, which basically means the value of the trade that we're getting for our goods. Green equals good, red equals bad, which is alright. Here we have our supply limit map mode, which basically means we can hold this many troops in this territory. Right now we can hold 13 regiments in like marches, which is decent, but things like London we can hold 29, which is beast. You have buildings map mode, not really that useful because I can build one building here. I can't build a building here. Yeah. We can. Oh yeah, it's because of magistrates. Duh. So not really very useful thing to know. Recruitment map mode. It's only useful if you got an effect to recruitment, which basically means nothing. So that's pretty much inaccurate. Same for shipbuilding. Shipbuilding. Just so you guys know what I'm talking about. randomly swearing out in the middle of nowhere. And the final thing is missionary map mode, which basically means if a country changes religion, if a county or a province changes religion, it will pop up, giving its percentage and cost. Bang, send missionary, wait, converted, done. So, pretty decent. Here we have our, well, this is the last thing I'm going to go over. Here we have the papacy. Basically means how we're doing as we are the Catholic state. Right now, we're the papal controller, which gives us a lot of stuff to do. We also have a lot of influence on the cardinals, and we have a high papal influence, which means we have a better chance of getting cardinals, which is all well and good. We have 2 cardinals directly in the court, so which is all very well and good. There's one thing I want to do though before I end this episode. Actually, no, I'll do it next episode. Right, so that'll basically mean that one thing I've forgotten actually, which is no, that's not fine province. Don't want to do that. It's ledger. It basically means this is basically a map of everything. It gives you a lot of information about everything. So if I wanted to find out how big France's army is, I can just go bang and look down, and there's France with 10,000. They have 10,000 men right now, and we have 9,000, which is alright, but that'll change in time. So that's it for the tutorial. This tutorial is all about how when the game is paused. When the game is going, I'll talk about it when the time comes. So I'll see you guys next episode for when we actually unpause the game and actually get to work.